Hello there. Welcome to this session, Solving Tactics on ChessTempo.com. Today I have a little bit of a headache, but I decided to go ahead and do this session anyways. So we'll see how everything goes. I'm a little bit sick again, runny nose. But last time I was sick, I took a small break, and my rating dropped horribly. That was easy. Yeah, you just stop the king from coming in. Rook check, and I'll give up the queen. My first instinct is to play queen f1 check, rook g1, queen f2, 3 check. Let me just confirm that there's no win here. Yeah, queen f1 check, queen f3 check, perpetual. Oh, nice. Gave up a little bit too easily on that one. If pawn takes, queen takes, checkmate. The only check I have here is queen g1 check. So I either need to move my rook, I suppose. Rook g3, rook g6, rook g6, pawn takes check, king g8. If rook takes queen check, king g8, queen check. I don't like that. So play king g8 immediately. But I don't see what that would gain me. Rook g6, e8 check, king g8, e7 check, king g8. So this is all just a matter of deciding what I want to do with my rook. Now if rook g3, queen takes h4 would threaten queen h8 check, as well as queen takes g3. So probably rook g6 is best. Rook g6 takes check, king g8. Rook f1, d5. So the squares I'm now considering are either g3 or g5. I'm not considering rook g8 because of pawn check, king g8, queen check. That just looks horrible. Losing a pawn with check at the very least. So rook g6 or rook g5. The thing don't like about rook g5 is that afterwards d5 doesn't seem like as much of a threat. So I should probably just go with my first instinct here and play rook g6. Rook g6, queen h4. Queen h4, king g8. I'm safe. Rook g5, queen h4. Rook h5 could be good. Rook g5. Queen takes h4. Excuse me. Rook g5. e7 check. King g8. And now I'm threatening rook e5. So maybe rook g5 is best, because it threatens rook e5. Rook g5, e8, e7 check, king g8, queen takes h4, rook h5, queen f4, and I could deliver perpetual that or a repetition that way. I don't think it's necessary, but I could. So maybe rook g5 is best. Rook g6, queen h4, king g8 also seems fine. But just rook g5 with the additional threats of rook e5. Rook g6. I don't understand why, really. Rook g5, queen h7. Okay. Rook g5, queen h7. Threatening queen h6 check, I guess. But if queen h6 check, king g8. This is still not clear to me. Rook g5. Rook g6 was my instinctual response, but I figured rook g5 would be stronger, since if black does nothing, there's the additional threat of rook e5. Queen h7, queen takes check. No, not this. What do you do here? You need to move the rook, I guess. Then. Okay. Alright, fair enough. Queen h4, queen h3, checkmate. How do you stop it? He has one check. So queen h4, rook g3, bishop takes g3, pawn takes g3, queen takes g3, threatening f2, f1 queens. Queen takes, bishop check, king takes. Doesn't scare me. Queen h4, queen takes h6, queen takes h6, doesn't scare me. Queen h4, bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes check, king g1. Bishop takes, pawn takes. That's a unique solution. That's not something that I would have considered. So bishop here. I should take here? Or should I? If I take here and he takes here, I can take here with check. So rook takes, I'm up at the exchange. But queen takes, queen b7 check. King g8, pawn takes queen, and I lose. Oh, it wants me to play queen takes h3 check first? I don't know, like, that doesn't, I'm not certain about that, because like rook takes, king takes, and then king g7. And then after g5, this rook is going to be completely stuck in the middle of nowhere. So even taking on h3 doesn't seem like a great move. Even if it's the most material. That was what I was thinking anyways. especially since directly afterwards I lose the pawn on f3. Queen takes f2, queen b7 check. No, queen takes f2, queen takes h6, king g8, bishop here. I'm about to get checkmated. Okay, fuck you. What? Wait, how does queen b7 not work? Oh, queen doesn't have the b7 square. The queen doesn't have the b7 square. Oh. Seeing ghosts, I thought the queen was coming here. Yeah, this was my first instinct, but just having some mental problems today. Rook takes, queen check. Queen e8. Rook takes, queen check. Queen e8 forced. Queen e6 check. King g8. So, not quite. What about queen c1? Knight takes d4. Rook c8 check. King e7. Queen g5 check. f6. Queen takes f6 checkmate. Queen c1 leads to checkmates, so knight needs to go back to a7. Then I can play rook c7, queen takes a4, rook takes a7, threatening checkmate. Apparently not. Rook takes, queen check, queen e8 forced. Queen d6 check is the only move I see after that. Rook takes, queen d8 check, queen e8. Some quiet move. Queen f6. Doesn't really threaten anything. Queen d8 check first is just stupid. Queen f6 now. Threatening queen h8. Queen f6, knight takes d4. threatening knight f3, queen f6, knight takes d4, queen h8 check, king e7, rook c8, threatening queen e8 or queen f8, checkmate, or queen d8, checkmate, so the queen needs to stay here. The queen also needs to cover f8. So knight takes d4, so queen f6, knight takes d4, queen h8 check, king e7, rook c8, threatening queen f8 mate, knight e2 check, king f2, nothing more. Rook c8 check, queen takes c8, queen h8 check, wins the queen, rook c8 check, queen takes c8 is forced, wins the queen. Did not like that problem, to be honest. So what was wrong with knight takes, queen check, rook here, queen check, I'm sorry, king e7, rook here. Oh, the problem with it is knight check, king f2, knight takes e5. But not really, because that still doesn't cover. Well, I suppose it does cover the checkmate, doesn't it? Yeah. So what should you do here? Should you take? No. Queen a check, king e7. Oh, this is the computer line. That seems a bit much. Anyways. Knight takes, bishop takes, rook d1. Bishop takes b2, rook takes, rook b2. I don't like the look of that. So knight takes, bishop takes, rook d1, bishop takes b2, rook takes here. That all seems pretty shitty. So then knight takes bishop here, rook e2, for example, defending. You can't play this, knight takes, bishop takes, pawn takes, knight c2. So there's no way for me to cover the knights and cover the fork. So knight takes d4 is always happening. Knight takes d4 happens no matter what. And then I need to choose between rook b1 and rook e2, I guess. rook e2, if rook e8, rook takes e8, king takes e8, rook b1. So I might as well just play rook b1 from the get-go. Knight takes bishop takes rook b1. But I like rook e2 a little bit more because it allows my king to get over, and it also threatens doubling. Knight takes, bishop takes, rook d1, bishop takes, rook takes. I'm not really threatening anything against the king in that position. Okay, that solves the fork threat. But why is that so much better? I don't know, it seems like a crock of shit to me. So let's say king e1, now bishop takes. This is too dangerous. I gotta be honest, I didn't even consider rook takes in order to solve the checkmate issues. Not a good day for me. I'm very tired, very sick. Just not a good day. Alright, threatening checkmate. Knight c5 doesn't work. Queen f8 is really the only move that I see. There's also queen f6. Queen f6 is better than queen f8, I think. Because after queen f8, there's bishop takes c6. But after queen f6, if bishop c6, queen takes e6. So queen f6, queen check, rook h8, rook f8. Queen takes c6. I can play queen takes c6, bishop takes c6, rook takes b7, bishop takes b7, rook a2. Knight f3, knight c5, c4. Oh wait, rook takes a1 check. Or rather, rook takes a2 check. So Queen f6. Queen check, rook f8. I forgot that my rook's on f8. I could play rook g7, but after rook takes g7, queen takes g7, bishop takes is on, but then I'll have rook takes a2 check. Morozevich, Alexander Morozevich, Boris Gelfand with the black pieces. Mistakes made in this position, queen f8. Computer line goes knight c5. Doesn't seem entirely lost, but whatever. Knight check, pawn takes. I get the impression that I've played this problem before and that it was very difficult for me. Yeah, I think I've done this problem before and I failed it. Okay, so I currently have to deal with the threat of knight e6 check. I believe the answer is c5. I need to stop this. And I need to stop c3, but c3 is not a real threat because of knight b3 check. If the knight moves away, knight e6, so this knight is totally paralyzed. So you have to play c5 to stabilize. White to move. g7, king takes d6, king f7. I get the impression that I should play king g7, king h8. g7, king takes, king f7. I'm not really enjoying this problem because I feel that it's something that you should know like as an endgame thing, but not something that you should calculate over the board. G7, rook check, king g6, rook takes d7, king takes d7, g8 queens, rook check, king h7. Draw. g7, rook f1 check, king g6, any king move and I promote, G7, rook takes G7, king takes G7. G7, king takes D6, king F7, rook check, king G7. Yeah. D7 check. King F7. Now rook G6, or rather king G6. If king G7, king E7, king H7, rook check, king G8. King F6, king F8, rook A1, and I would have to queen to knight. But if I play knight king G6, there isn't that tactic. So the problem with king G8 is king E7, king H8 or king H7, rook check, king G6, rook check, king H7, king F7. And sorry, the line that I was calculating was the line that I calculated with the checkmate trick was this, this, this. And now if queens checkmate, so you have to promote to knight. But this should be a win for black because of the way that the knight is dominated. If the knight comes out, checkmate. Or I'm sorry. Maybe it's not a draw. Or maybe it is a draw. Threatening H1 queens. I can play bishop D2, but rook G4 check. So I can play rook H7, stopping queens. Is there any way to threaten checkmate? The only checkmate I see takes a couple of moves to set up. You'd need to play like rook F7, bishop D2, rook F4 checkmate. I can play rook G4 check, king F5, then rook H4 to stop myself from losing the D4 pawn. After rook takes H2, rook C2 doesn't work because I have bishop D2, so he's not winning my rook. If rook takes D7, obviously I lose, right? H1 queens. Rook takes d7, h1 queens. There's no there. So yeah, just rook g4 check, king f5, rook h4. Rook c1, rook takes h2, rook c2 check, bishop d2, rook takes b2. Draw. Black to move. Second, I'm gonna make myself something hot to drink. Alright, back with some hot chocolate. So the threat is e7, king d7. Well, I mean the one threat is bishop d4, right? That's one threat. And the other threat is e7, knight d6 check, king d7. I can play king c2 or rook c2, but then you would play knight check. Rook c2, knight check, king f8, e7 check, king g8, e8 queens. So that's the real threat. The real threat is knight d6 check, king f8, e7 check, king g8, e8 queens, rook takes e8, knight takes e8. b3, bishop takes d4, b2, bishop takes b2, just doesn't, yeah. There's no counterplay there. I'm just lost. So I need to stop knight d6. So I think that knight b5 is the way to go. Knight b5 to stop knight d6 check. I could consider rook g2, king h5, rook h2, king g5, rook g2, king h2. Or for example, I could check once and then play knight b5. That would also give me room to play knight f5 instead of knight b5. So rook g2 check, king h5, knight f5. No, I don't want to do that because that doesn't stop d5, d6. My rook on e2 stops d6. I could also just sack, right? Knight takes, pawn takes, rook takes. king f5, rook c6, knight a5, rook b6. Okay, wait, let's consider knight b5, d6, rook takes, d7 check, king takes. Okay. Yeah, I considered this line because two pieces, but my pawns are also extremely strong. But knight b5, d6, rook takes seemed okay. What's wrong with this line according to the computer? Knight b5, f5. Apparently that. Okay, let's take a break, and I'm gonna actually just start another session, but I don't want another like hour-long video. So if you stuck with me through this, I'm sorry. I'm sick, man. I'm just sick. Um, and I probably shouldn't even record when I'm sick, but let's face it, this is more about my improvement than my viewers' improvement. And this is really just about not having another really horrible week where I stop recording when I'm sick, and then I just can't. I can't even play chess anymore. Like last time I was sick, I dropped over 100 points in blitz, and I had two really bad sessions doing tactics, and I just can't let that happen. So I'm gonna do this regardless. But I hope you did learn something all the same. I hope you enjoyed that. And until the next time, good luck with your chess journey. Bye bye for now.